What a subtle way to break into some okay, piano music on there just for you, Barry.
I love
Anyways,
that intro music. Go ahead, Jay. I'm sorry.
it's a casual evening night. So it's Cisco Virtual Kitchen late night show. We've got a great guest on our show tonight. And for everyone else that's going to tune in tonight, we're really going to talk about the current situation, obviously, we're going through right now. We got Barry Shuster on here. And Barry, you are also a legend in the industry. Did you create and founded Restaurant Startup and Growth magazine?
Yeah, in 2003, I got together with Gary Warden and some other people. We pulled together $1 million and decided to create a management best practices magazine specifically for the independent restaurant market. Gary had been a publisher for years and years, very successful guy, and he got into the restaurant business. And he said, "Hey, there's really nothing out there publishing media-wise that it tells you how to do this. There's a lot of great news sources about the industry." So he decided he wanted to create this kind of how-to management best practice publication for independent operators, and we actually this month we just put out 200th consecutive issue as it stands. So
that's a pretty good title to have.
Yeah.
But anyways, before we get started here, Barry, because we're going to talk about the industry tonight, and I do want to just also mention, because I do have to plug our Cisco Source. So Cisco Source is our sponsoring our late night shows, and Cisco Source I think is going to tie into a lot of our conversation tonight, because it's Cisco's online system on there for you to do your ordering on, your inventory, everything you need to do. And I tell you, right now in the industry is the time to be doing this stuff. And Barry, you tell me all the time, we got to be knowing our costs, knowing our numbers. And Cisco Source, our system that you get when you work with Cisco, is an incredible system and something that people need to use all the time to know their cost, and you need to know your cost. Like, I cannot reiterate that more than anything today. And restaurants that are maybe had to close down with in-room dining, they're having to do takeout. When you get into that third-party delivery and you move into that world, you need to know your cost. And we have so many conversations about this with me in my department, my team on my shows, and everyone says, before you make a decision to go to third-party or do takeout, you got to know your numbers. You got to know your numbers. So we have this amazing system. I want to plug it there because you got to use it. If you're not using Cisco Source, you're probably wasting your time, and your numbers are not accurate as much as they probably can be. And we want you to be around forever. So try it out. Ask your rep. There you go. There's a plug. Oh, I just cracked my knee. But anyways, so Barry, I want to talk a lot about tonight we talked today. We had a great panel talk today about ghost kitchens, blackout kitchens, virtual kitchens, cloud kitchens. Man, we could come up with different names of this. I want to talk a little bit about that, but I also want to talk about, from your perspective, where are we navigating to? Or if you're working with restaurants right now, and you had to tell them, this is the way that we really need you to start thinking about coming up January, February, March. Because we know we have a gut feeling, kind of, other than maybe the disruption that we had to close down restaurants in some of our Ontario market and Quebec markets. What do we do January and February, March? I want to talk a little bit about that later, because I think it's so important. Because as we're seeing more operators work in the industry right now, and like they're online or they're in their restaurants night and day now, because they've had to cut staff to save some money. I don't know if they had a lot of thought process, and it's hard to predict what the future is going to look like. I don't know if a lot of them are thinking about what they're going to be doing come January, February, March, because that's going to, I have a feeling it could be a very interesting new year.
Yeah. We're not going backward to the way it was, I don't believe. I mean, again, I'm not a crystal ball, but as you know better than anybody else, third-party delivery, ghost kitchens were a rising issue before the pandemic, and the pandemic accelerated it. So we're not going to go back, even in the United States, where there's they're loosening up restrictions in some states, and I'm going into restaurants and I'm seeing, pretty packed houses with social distancing. So there's some pent up demand for that. I think operators are going to have to adjust their business to accommodate takeaway, curbside, and even the ghost kitchens, because that's going to be the competitive market. We don't know where this virus is going to go, but I just don't think, even if there was a miracle vaccine that emerged, next month and everybody had access to it, and this virus went away like the Spanish flu did years and years ago, I just don't. I still think that there's just going to be this demand for non-seated dining, and that's going to be part of everybody's business model.
Do you think the casual? We kind of have a feeling that, I want to say, we had an eyesight of what this was going to look like. I had it over like a 20-year span of what our industry would navigate to, and it feels like we've shortened that up in the last 7 months on what we've seen. But do you feel that I'm not even going to ask about white tablecloth, because I have a good feeling where that's going to go, and I don't know if that will exist anymore in the new world. But do you believe seating? You wouldn't bank yourself on restaurants with seating, or restaurants really got to focus more on the takeout and delivery? And I just see that on so many shows that are talking about these kind of subjects, that it's not necessarily the industry itself that's been shifted, it's the consumer that's causing the industry to shift. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I don't believe we can write off on-premises dining. Just what I'm seeing in our own markets, there seems to be a lot of interest, people getting together in a communal environment, particularly younger diners. I think some of the older diners are maybe scared away, but then I go to restaurants and I see across the age group. I think that people are getting used to some of the convenience of being able to have food off premises of all different types. And I think that is part of what drives it a bit. Sure, there's going to be a group of people who are going to be afraid to go into communal areas anymore because they're just scared of getting sick. I think operators are going to have to look at their revenue stream very carefully and say, okay, how do I make this work based on whatever restrictions I have in social distancing, whatever guest traffic I have? What days do I stay open? What days do I close? How much of my operations do I dedicate to takeout, curbside? I think the financial analysis aspect, and you sort of led us into it, is critical. You never really could be successful in this business, which is basically a game of pennies anyway, without just really having a handle on your top line and bottom line. Now it's not even, it's not even a question. The operators who are going to succeed are going to understand where everything's flowing in, what their budget projections are. They're going to do cash flow projections. They're going to know what their operating cash flow is going to look like, or have a good sense of it. And they're going to have a real handle on their costs. And, that goes into everything else in terms of what type of menu they have, their purveyors, who are they working with as their distributors. We could go on and how that manifests itself.
Do you think, how is it possible, let me rephrase this, with the pivoting and the shifting that we're seeing here now, can we make this into a more profitable industry as we move into this new world we're living in, opposed to getting rid of that stagnant penny? It's all about pennies. Can we rewrite this to make more money?
Yeah, a lot of that's going to hinge on the consumer, of course, because at some point, to be profitable, you're going to have to raise prices in some situations. I think, I'm going to go back to some real basic concepts in running a restaurant. You're not going to succeed in this business unless you're a McDonald's on the side of the highway on one-off customers. You got to have repeat business. You've got to cultivate relationships with people who are going to come back twice a month, 3 times a month, maybe once a week to you for different reasons. And how do you do that? I'm a big proponent of this thing called digital hospitality. You have fewer touch points with a ghost kitchen. You have fewer touch points with curbside. So man, those touch points better be good.
Yeah.
When that person if that person picks up the phone to call you, they better feel like they're the most welcome person on earth. If they get online to order, that online ordering system has to be seamless and enjoyable. And when that food shows up in the bag or shows up on their doorstep, you better be reaching out to them and saying, hey, listen, is everything to your taste? That's going to make the big difference, because frankly, there's only so much you can do to differentiate your food. There's a lot of great chefs out there, a lot of good food, but I don't think we're going to the Blockbuster Netflix model where people can go, well, you know what, I'm not going to Blockbuster anymore because I get streaming and I don't really care. It's the same movie. And now I don't have to get in my car and worry about dropping it off on Sunday night because to avoid late charges. It's not that. I don't see that yet. I don't see us going into a vending machine type of industry. I still see us operators having relationships in their community with their guests. And there's going to be some expectation of hospitality that goes along with the whole culture of food. I hope that makes sense anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that I think that, and like the discussions I've had on ghost kitchens and delivery and takeout and everything, we've really looked at the experiences we can create in those areas, and they're brilliant. And I was blown away today on our panel talk we had earlier this afternoon around what you can do to create experiences through third-party delivery and takeout. And there's a lot of ideas. I don't think we're even started in that area on creating experiences. I think we dabbled a little at the beginning of COVID, ready name on a bag and all these thank yous and all this stuff. They're just getting warmed up, and I think that's going to expand and grow more and more as people get into the second wave. We're into this second time. I got to really focus on takeout and delivery because the winter and the months and the weather time. They're getting creative wheels are growing again. I'm sort of serious. I'm with you. I'm hoping that we don't see this disrupt the experience when you go to a restaurant. And there's a great video on YouTube right now. I don't know if you saw this, Barry, but it's the sounds of a restaurant in a kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And it says something we forgot is all these sounds. I almost got emotional remembering all those sounds. The deep fryer sound, the turning the oven on with that the gas coming through and hitting all these things I think create that experience, not only as an owner and operator, but as one that when you're going there and getting the servers to come up and having a beautiful meal and being dined. We can't forget about that stuff. I hope we don't.
I don't think we will. I mean, there's certain touch points, and let's think about what food is. I mean, it fulfills a basic need. You and I can go for weeks without watching Netflix, but we got to eat several times a day to be healthy. And I'm getting back to this thing called these touch points with curbside or with ghost kitchens. Now you have fewer touch points with your guests, so you need to maximize those. Yeah. I'll just give you an example. I ordered some food to go in town, and I picked it up in a paper bag, and I brought the paper bag back, and so I was baking the food out, sharing it with my kids, and on the bag, the person who had fulfilled my order said, "Hey, really appreciate," written on the bag, you being our guest, and we hope you have a wonderful evening, and thank you, and a heart on it. A simple thing like that, but it absolutely made my day. It's a type of, and so there is that experience with food. I think that is more than just basically what I call a vending machine experience. I think there is hospitality. Still a demand for hospitality. I like to believe that anyway.
Yeah, and I really hope it comes back the way it was. I can take a little bit of a shift and change, But I hope it comes back to be able to have my kids have those experiences when they go out and they dine out by themselves without their family and experience all those different things that we did. Because there are a lot of memories that are attached to dining. In a lot of the restaurants, there's memories. I have so many memories, amazing places all over Canada. And I've got to dine out even down in the US and Texas and stuff like that. And I hope we don't lose that, because my fear is that vendoring style restaurant where we see some places trying it without a server. We have one in Toronto that opened up that is completely no one in it. Go grab your food, sit down, enjoy a meal. And I hope we don't miss that, because I do think there is something that comes with the dining that I don't think you can replace. And it's something that we gotta cherish. I hope our industry doesn't forget it.
What I've observed with younger diners, we'll call them millennials and Gen Z. My kids are Gen Z. I keep a pulse on what millennials are doing in terms of their interests, and there still seems to be a tremendous interest in the communal dining experience, particularly for, my kids they're going to be turned 21 this weekend, actually. So they're young adults, and they are digital natives. They grew up hunched over their telephones, computers. They don't remember a time when they weren't digitally connected, and so the dining out experience, on-premises dining for them, is really the time sometimes where they can get away from that. I have a lot of faith that the younger diners who are going to become who are already the predominant consumer group are still going to keep that experience alive, as long as the government will let them, as long as this terrible disease doesn't continue to interfere with restaurateurs' ability to provide that experience.
Yeah. And I'm hoping my kids are the same way, because they're a little younger, but they're getting experiences now through the Skip and through Uber Eats and those kind of things, that it's becoming almost like how I used to dine out on weekends with my parents. They're getting used to that model, and I'm like, hey man, there's a whole much more experience when we go out and dine out. Don't forget about that. And it's okay. We got to survive, right? We got to introduce these new avenues and different ways to bring in the stream, the income. So when this is over, we can bring back those experiences. And I think there'll be some great things that come out of this. And you're seeing it now. And I want to talk a little bit about that, in the sense, leads into the conversation about knowing your numbers. And knowing your numbers. I don't know if there's a restaurateur out there right now that hasn't heard this 1,000 times over the 7 months. But what are you hearing, Barry? You write stuff, you hear stuff all the time. What are people doing right now? What are they dealing with right now? Can you hear me?
You broke up a little bit, but I'm trying to follow you real carefully. So I think I caught most of your question.
Okay, I was going to say my LinkedIn's driving me crazy, so sorry. I was just going to say, what are people dealing with right now as a restaurateur? Like today, they woke up. Today's Wednesday. They're in their restaurant. What are they dealing with right now? Are they worried about January, February, March? Or are they thinking about what next week's going to be like? And is the government going to change stuff? Or am I going to be challenged with having to close down? Are they thinking about that? Or are they just in survival mode? What are you hearing out there?
A lot of them are in survival mode. They're just trying to figure out how they make it from week to week to week. How do we get as many people in here, as many orders as possible? So unfortunately, particularly for the independents, there's not a lot of strategy. The chains, I think, there's several of them that are doing really well, because I think they're thinking strategically. Although if you're following the trade news, there's been about 13 or 14 chains that have filed Chapter 11 to reorganize and try to figure out their business model. So I think, I think some of them are looking long term, as you would imagine, particularly in Canada. there is a lot of discussion and concern regarding what's going to happen with the weather, because a lot of operators did shift their services to outdoors during the better weather. And, now with the weather cooling off, there's a concern. What are they going to do? Can we afford to put heaters in? Will people want to still dine outside with heaters? If we have to bring everybody inside with social distancing, are people going to even want to dine with us? So I think, the winter months, that's a big issue for a lot of operators, because some operators have done pretty well by shifting a lot of their dining outside. There seems to be, at least in the United States, among consumers, a fair amount of confidence about dining outside. And I think that's helped a lot of operators maintain a fairly decent stream of guest traffic. But I think, unfortunately, a lot of operators, this is one of our operators, members of Restaurantercom, said, and I think she really expressed what a lot of them are feeling. We don't have a plan B. This restaurant is our life. We got all our money sunk into this. We don't have a plan B. This has to work. And so in that case, they're just thinking, how do we manage day to day to day to day, keeping labor costs low, trying to push as much product out the door as possible.
And I just want to share something with you, Barry, because not too many people know, but before I started with Cisco and I get to this amazing job and love what I do and everything, my previous life, I actually drove a restaurant into the ground, and it was a martini lounge, and it didn't close when I left, but it closed not that long after. And I've been through those steps of watching your income start to slide. I've seen your sales slip. I've been through that. So I have worked at very successful places, don't get me wrong. Very, very successful places. But I've also seen a very successful place and that's probably where I learned most of the things I've done and consulted with all these thousands of restaurants over the years, is from that 3 years of working there and learning all the things not to do. And when I see these kind of things and I look at patios and I look at the winter and all those things, those are great if they can work. But I tell you, when you get on that slippery slope, that your place is starting to go down because you're not doing third-party delivery, or you haven't pivoted, or you haven't shifted, or you're not using the resources out there. And we're going to do another plug for our company. When they don't know, we do menus for free. We do your bloody menu for free. We help you with QR codes. We'll help you with the marketing. All these things that we offer. There is a lot of people that know that. But in this last 7 months, I haven't seen a lot of people lean on us so much. It's like, whoa. We're waiting. We got a team that will help you with marketing and menus and all the things you need to do right. And we're doing shows and we're doing everything. We got to use those people, but you got to use them because it's free. And it's something that we're not going to claim that we're experts, but I tell you, we know a lot and we deal with this every day. But I do want to say is when you hit that slippery slope and you're starting to fall down in your restaurant, it is not pretty. And hearing these stories of what people are going through, I've had many nights I wake up going, oh my God, did I just go back in time? Because I worry about restaurants and the people in our industry so much because I've lived it. I have seen it. And I hope no one's watching, but I'm going to share you how bad it gets, Barry. Is I've seen the owner get me to buy no-name booze to pour into the well bottles that were high-end so we could still sell that at that price. So that is the degree I've seen people, when you say survival mode, that is survival mode that I've seen and lived it. It is not pretty. And I just hope people use sources and resources and everything that's out there so you don't have to live that. Because I go back and I think about the people, the employees and everything that there was times when we didn't know if we could pay them. And that is, I learned so much, and I use that today on what I do for Canada. But every time I hear these stories and hear what's happening and people, banking on patios and it's minus 30 or, it's really cold out, I don't know if that's the answer. So I'm hoping that some of these ideas that we have on third party or takeout or, your restaurant, you had to adjust so you can still open, you can still seat, everything is so touchy right now. It's so finicky. You need to use everything that's out there.
Yeah. For the operators who can make that adaptation, it's a way of bringing in revenue. It's a way of creating sales. As I think I suggested, and I think we've discussed it before, our publishing company owns at least pre-COVID, a very, very popular and successful upscale restaurant in the Kansas City area. So we're not only dealing with this as journalists and publishers, but we're running a restaurant, and it isn't the kind of place that is going to be able to easily adapt to takeout or ghost kitchen. And we made great choices. We made great decisions. We saw a lot of single party diners coming into the restaurant wanting to have dinner at the bar. So we got rid of 4 tops in the back, and we centered the bar area, and people were coming in and they were ordering food and buying drinks. We realized that the labor costs and the food costs for banquets and catering were really profitable. So we hired somebody who did a great job getting weddings and business meetings and everything else, and it was really going well. And now with COVID, we're still hanging in there, but we made these great decisions, and it wasn't like, of course, if we have a magazine and a website telling people how to run restaurants, you believe we're following every bit of advice that we have.
Yeah.
But there's certain concepts that aren't, that just may not be able to make that transition because of the style of the menu, the style of service. Those that can, God bless them, that may be what keeps them in business. They may have on-premises dining 3 days a week, and then the rest of the time relying on takeout and third-party delivery. For the bulk of the restaurants that are really going to survive, that's going to be important. We're still in the game. People are still coming to the restaurant. We even book some weddings, believe it or not. But awesome. It's not like it was pre-COVID, because you've got all kinds of challenges with social distancing, and people are afraid to have 100 people from their company come into a banquet dining room and all sit together. So
did you have to change to takeout or delivery? Like, did you have to change that model, or did you just kind of be all right, we're doing that?
Well, I mean, it was always offered. It wasn't like, somebody called us and said, listen, I'd like, your empanadas and an order of this takeaway. Sure, they could come in, and that wouldn't be an issue. But that wasn't what the restaurant was known for. The restaurant was known for a place to go get a martini at the end of the day. We're kind of located in this area with all that. So it wasn't, it wasn't like that. But we did with the takeout alcohol. I mean, you're going to have to, again, you're going to have to look at, what are my possible revenue streams? What are my costs of goods? What are my costs of labor? It really goes back to everything we were doing before. It's just now you're dealing with a different market and a different business environment. So I'm not contradicting what you're saying. I'm just saying that for some operators, it's going to be an easier shift than others. But you got to have operating cash flow, Jay. It's the lifeblood.
I know what that means. I didn't have any. We found out, man. And it's not fun. I promise you. It's not fun. No. So what was the question I really want to get into is, when we look at restaurants right now, what is the one thing that you find? Because I'm going to share with what I find first. That a lot of restaurants, that we share ideas, and we have these shows, and we do all these great things, and we give all these ideas out. One thing I find that people, and maybe you can help people in this area with your guidance, is strategy. I find so many operators today, there's an abundance of info, especially today on the internet. LinkedIn's like, everyone wants to be a movie star on LinkedIn. How do you see operators today that are doing a lot of these different things and stuff like that? Are they just doing it out of the blue, or do they have a strategy? Because I don't see strategies as much. Maybe it's the industry, because we do tend to just do things off the cuff. But do you think strategy is important, and do you see people doing it?
I do. We've had some excellent interviews with independent operators on Restaurantercom of operators that have looked at what they could do differently in terms of shifting to takeout, in terms of how they were communicating online, social media with their guests, looking at their menus, kind of trimming them down and determining what stuff was really selling, what was profitable. So yeah, I'm not sure if they really reflect the industry at large, but there are people doing it and doing it successfully. And again, this is, in 2003, 2004, when we started all this, and, you and I had that conversation earlier, you got to work on the business. Ray Kroc taught everybody in the industry years ago, you can't work in the business, you got to work on the business. And so the best operators were always doing that. Now they're just having different challenges. But, for some family businesses, it's just they're just doing what they can to stay in there. But there are people doing it, and it's clearly, as you're suggesting, it's critical, because you're going to have to sit back and look at the numbers. You can't look at your PL once a month. You got to look at it every 3 days. You got to keep your prime. What's my prime cost? Do we have too much labor? Do we have enough labor? Menu engineering, very old school, but what's selling? What's profitable? What can we do to make this to sell more of these and make it more profitable?
And I think the other thing on there, just to touch on that too, Barry, before, sorry, but I really recommend people, and this is everyone's going to watch the show later, is audit your delivery. I swear to God, audit it. Get someone to audit it. Get feedback on your delivery, because that product's out of your control after it leaves the delivery car and it's out on the road and it's going to your location. And today, as we see this being a huge part, especially in Canada, you need to be auditing your third party, your delivery, whatever you're using. You need to audit that, and that is like knowing your prime costs and all the other things, and your labor costs, all that. Knowing your delivery and what it ends up like at the end of it, and audit what your burger tastes like after it sits in the car for 25 minutes. Those are people are going to look at how your restaurant is by judging your takeout. And if you do have indoor dining, you can open that up later. They may not come to your place because they had a bad experience on something that you didn't audit. And we've done enough mystery shoppers, and I learned a lot from Restaurant Owner too, on the whole idea and the ideology behind mystery shoppers. But I don't hear, and I haven't heard a lot of people doing a mystery shopping their third party or the delivery or takeout. And I think that's so critical in today's world. So I hope people are doing that too.
I honestly, I haven't. It hasn't been on my radar either. I'm not saying it isn't going on. One of the things I'm seeing more are forward-thinking operators saying, "Okay, listen, I'm going to contact this customer via text message. I'm going to get their phone number, and I'm going to text them when they get that meal, or at least let them know how to get in touch with me to make sure everything is okay. So if there's a problem, at least I can address it. It's not like, I come into your restaurant, I sit down, it's not quite right. You can fix it very quickly and make me happy. So I think the follow-up is critical, and I think consumers are generally forgiving if they think that the operator really cares about their experience. If something doesn't, if the order is wrong, what can they do the next time they come back to make it right? I'm curious. The mystery shopping thing, I'm going to look into it. I think it's an important idea, because the point that I think you're making, to me anyway, is that your brand, whoever cooks that food, whether it's put in a ghost kitchen and delivered in Uber Eats, when the consumer gets it, all they're thinking about is your brand. And you have to have some way of controlling that as much as possible, that the final product, the final experience is positive. and they're not going to say, "Oh, gee, the Uber Eats guy got lost or was late or whatever." All they know is they got a subpar meal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? It's because as soon as that Uber Eats guy leaves, it's your brand sitting in there, right? And it's your food they're going to enjoy, and they may beat you up after on social too. And I think it's important because our teams and all the vendors, and we've done over 100 shows since June 1st, and a lot of attention and the detail that goes into takeout is a lot more complicated than I even thought of. And there is so many variables. There's so many things to consider. Now, as we get into the winter months, the competition, I think, is going to be even that much more fierce in this area. And I think you need to audit where you're at. You need to look at what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, where to improve. And then you need to go at it. But I also think, so we get the audit and everything else, I think you need to be very flexible and adjustable in your third-party delivery all the time, changing up. And because if you're targeting the millennials and Gen Z so much on the dining where they're going to be buying, and they maybe not the ones that cook at home all the time, they're going to be looking for that new experience all the time. So you can capitalize on, or you can run an old menu all the time on your third-party apps or delivery and not change up. So you're the new, fresh new ideas, fresh new LTOs, all these things. I think you may shoot yourself. So you need to look at this third party really as a very pinnacle area and be more critical, I think, with it as well, as maybe more than you would in your dining or equal. But I tell you, the more I learn about third party and the more of the products that I saw, like even today we did a show and looking at different ways to create an experience in third party delivery. And the one person said they're gravy. They made even gravy cool today. Not that gravy's always not been cool, Barry, but they said, well, why not we add Frank's red hot sauce, and it's a spicy gravy. It's a different experience. It's a different flavor profile than normally you get on your fries. This is an option. I'm like, you've just created an experience of gravy that I've never had before. And then using the branding and everything on your third-party delivery menus creates an uplift of the brand. I can charge a little bit more, make a little more money. So I think people, if I can say anything on third-party delivery, just please look at it, take it out. What have you done? What's working? Look at your menu. How big is it? I don't know how many people have ate their burger. We've had so many shows where our chefs will come in and they'll put the product to the side for the 20 or 30 minutes we did the show with, and then we'll look at it again and judge it. And go, there's most products will stay up, but a lot of products, forget it. And I hope it doesn't hurt your brand, because you may be trying to do good, and the opposite, it might be hurting yourself than helping.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a great point. How one of the things you have to consider now in terms of your menu is how well does this travel? And, do you want to have the customer do some of the final touches by separating sauces from proteins, so it's not a big mess when it gets there? And the consumer say, well, okay, I have to heat up some sauce here. I got to mix this together with the gravy or with the salad dressing, but now it's a really nice end product, so I spend a little extra time doing it rather than getting this kind of disappointing mess at the end. And I think that's one of the things the forward-thinking chefs now are thinking, how well does this travel? What information can I provide the guest to make sure when it gets there, they have an optimal experience? I think that's part of it. Third-party delivery is institutionalized now, but frankly, it is not. It is not where it needs to be. It's not. I'm hoping there are going to be players in that market that disrupt the current. And I hate to say this, disrupt the current providers and do something so much better and so much differently for operators that it becomes a new standard.
I think on that, I agree with you, Barry. And I have had, we've partnered with a few different corporate smart startups, and I'm blown away by them because they're the guys in the garage that are disrupting the big company, like Mr. Jobs did.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting, and I tell you, my warning to those big corporations that are out there in third-party world, These guys are coming and they are brilliant and they have great ideas and they're going to disrupt. I promise you this is coming, Barry. Because I'm working with them and I'm seeing them and I'm just going, and they're not hurting the restaurant. They have the mind almost as a restaurant first, opposed to their business. And a lot of these corporations we're working with, they're thinking, how do we help the operator, opposed to how do we just get them down to the fine pennies that are left, and then we'll make their, then that's tough. You have to live with it, and it's the world. You gotta have your name on there. These other companies that I'm like, I've worked with a few of them. I sit on the calls and prep with them and stuff, and I just am blown away with their mentality of similar to how Mr. Jobs isn't about making money. It's about how he can create an experience and elevate people by using technology and computers and stuff. These people have the same mindset. It's blown away. And they're young, and they've got all this fire, and they want to go out there and help restaurants get into this area, but not lose their shirts.
I talked to a young guy named Adam Guild. He's 20 years old. The guy is so smart. It blows me away, and such a nice guy. And he created this company called Placepull, and he's trying to get into that market in third-party delivery and online ordering and with data analytics. But at the center of what he's trying to do, and I think this is what you're talking about these guys, he's got a value system. He's got a value system. It's not just about gee, how many customers can I get? What kind of delivery base can I get? What am I really doing to help the operator and help the consumer have a good experience? And I said, like you said, there's these young guys out there. They're smart, and they're going to see what's going on in the market, and they're going to see the problems that the operators are having. They're going to see the problem the consumers having. They're going to solve it, and I'm looking forward to that day. I really am.
Because I believe there is a gap. Like there is a gap. I can see it. I hear it every day. We see it in the news. We have some mayors asking companies to reduce costs on third-party apps because of there is definitely a gap for the end operator to not make what maybe they should be, and it deters some. But I do believe that we will see a disruption in our market within the next couple of years, maybe shorter even, that will come in, because there's a marketing side to this that I don't think a lot of companies realize, that you can have a pretty good life and live a pretty good life by utilizing your reach, by utilizing marketing and bringing in marketing. Probably similar and opposite what Facebook did back when Facebook first came in. They didn't use marketing tactics to build up who they are. I think companies come in and do the opposite, is build up the marketing of what they offer and what they are, to offset the cost of what the restaurateurs can do. I believe that is the formula. So you have an ad before you type out your meal, and that's where the income's coming to operate these systems and operate the people that own them and stuff. It's not off the end user. I believe you can run it at a zero cost to the end user and still make a ton of money.
Well, and one of the biggest indicators that there is a problem with the third-party delivery market is that it's being regulated. When you see the government coming in to regulate something heavily, that is a market in decline.
Watch out.
Because they're ignoring
Exactly.
and it's stakeholder theory, which is I'm not very big on. I teach law and ethics at a university as my other thing. And stakeholder theory, modern corporations, modern businesses are looking at who are all my stakeholders, am I taking care of them? And you start ignoring certain stakeholders, whether it's the community, the environment, the suppliers, the vendors, your employees. When you start ignoring them, that's when you get a market in decline. So I think the fact that you're seeing, local governments and saying, listen, we're going to put a cap on your delivery fees. When they start regulating, that's when something has to change. That's at least my perspective.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. I agree with you, and it's definitely. I don't know. I've got to be careful when I say definitely needed, because when you get government into our industry and stuff like that, usually other things come out of it. But So I want to talk briefly before we close it down here, though. I want to talk about what you believe January and February and March. As I start to talk with a lot of people on my team and people I'm starting to have conversations with, is what does, I know it's hard to predict. I know it is. But if you were to speed up to January right now, what would you be doing, Barry? Or what are you thinking about January and February? Maybe March.
You know, because we don't know what's going to happen with this pandemic. We don't know, you know, as they say, use the term flattening the curve. Right now, I think a lot of operators are going to just be status quo as much as they feel status quo is working. Um, you know, I'm just really hesitant to predict any kind of massive
Right.
changes. I think if we start seeing the cases of COVID-19 lowering, hospitalizations lowering, we're going to see more confidence, and I think we're going to see some loosening of government restrictions, which are necessary. I mean, I'm not saying all regulation is bad, and it's a public health issue here. We're going to see maybe some of the restrictions, at least in the United States, which I'm familiar with, loosening, and you're going to see a gradual return to on-premises. I think during this time, operators are going to go, what's my balance between off premises and on premises? Where am I making my money? And I think they're going to try to find that sweet spot. And I think by January or February, if they're still in business, God willing, you know, they're going to have a better sense of where that is. But a big part of this is going to be consumer confidence in terms of being able to return on premises. And if we have a real resurgence of this disease, you know, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, and I think so. On that, I also believe we get into January and people are going, "Okay, I assuming they've done it." Would you agree that marketing of what you do and what you do well is going to be more than important in January because of that slowdown after the Christmas or holidays?
It's critical now, and it's going to be critical then. I think it's a great point that you just made. You know, I interviewed Johnny Caraba before COVID-19, and this guy has, you know, we're familiar with his brands. He's created a chain of hundreds of restaurants, and he said, you know, Barry, you win and lose in this game with every touch point, with every guest, every meal. And I think in the community, I think the marketing is going to be telling your story, what we're trying to do. This is not the time to hide your light under a bushel. If you've been doing things to help, you know, first responders by giving them free meals and things, this is the time to tell your story, to be genuine. And again, getting back to your repeat patronage, to develop that relationship, that communication with the guests who will come back once, twice, three times a month. Fortunately, you know, with social media, it kind of levels the playing field. But I think that marketing is critical, not only externally, but again, I consider those touch points, what you're doing when the person contacts you, talks to you, as part of your marketing, because that's where you're going to develop your repeat patronage.
I agree. I think it's something that, you know, a lot of marketing agencies that I work with, they've all said that a lot of people will pull back on the marketing right now, or through COVID, a lot of pull back because they felt the funds they needed. And that's normal, I think. But I think you need to really look at what your strategy is going to be with your marketing plans coming into the new year, because you could probably capitalize on a lot of the restaurants that may not be able to make it and scoop those, you know, regulars or those people that use them all the time over to your business. And I think marketing, like you said, the genuine, authentic marketing message of what makes you great and your story will be huge. I think coming into the new calendar year, it's going to be very interesting. But I'm with you; it's very hard to predict that far away. It's not that far away, but it's a little hard.
It isn't that far away. It's going to, we'll blink our eyes. You know, once Halloween comes, I mean, then it's New Year's. You know, it's like, so it's going to be here quickly, and you know, it's just that there's so many variables right now, Jay. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. There's so many variables, but I think a lot of it gets back to some of the basics. You got to get that repeat patronage. You've got to know your numbers. You've got to get your menu so that you're maximizing your costs on food. You've got to keep your prime costs at a reasonable level, around 60% or so. Those are things that you should have been doing before the pandemic, but now you just don't have there's no flexibility. And then again, working on your business. I mean, if you're a small business, you're going to be working in the business too, but you got to take at least one day out of the week and step back and go, okay, what are we doing to get that extra customer here? What are we doing to get that repeat patronage? What are we doing to squeeze another 1% of margin out of our sales? That's
but you need to do that though. You nailed it too there, Barry. Is you need to step back because you get into it, man. You miss stuff. You think the greatest idea. I do this all the time, and then I've been just stepping back a little bit more, going, whoa, that might have been the greatest idea or best decision. But we get so into business, and especially with people working in the restaurants and dealing with COVID, takeout menus, all staffing problem, all this. You need to step back and reflect and look at what's happening. And like you said, look at every area to make money and to save money. And it's going to be a very interesting rest of this year and definitely into next year.
Yeah, and out of respect to the host, to you and Cisco, I mean, and I've talked to the people at Cisco and the other broad line, but focusing on Cisco, there's some really great resources, and your supply chain, as you said, is critical. They can give you so much information to help you make sure you have the right inventory, you're paying the right prices, you can predict, what you're going to need going forward. This is the time to take advantage of all the help you can get. So
yeah, it really is, and and I'm proud to be a part of this and lead this for Canada. Is the resources that we have for them, and everything from we do your menus for free, we'll do your marketing and help you with marketing and give you ideas. And then I always loved when a customer come to me with a challenging idea we didn't know, and be like, woohoo, we go research it and then bring that back to them. And that's what's the best part of my job is just helping everyone. And it's just you just got to be a partner with Cisco, and that's it. And everything else comes. And with our reach too, we've made deals with Uber Eats that operators don't have to pay any fees if they have the items picked up at their locations. Like, we've got some pretty cool programs out there to help you right now, and please reach out to them and use them when you can. And Barry, you know what? I can talk to you till tomorrow, but it's always a pleasure talking to you. You bring some really good insights all the time, and I'm just so happy to know you, but to have you on our show as well.
Well, awesome. Same here. Thank you, Jay. It's just it's a pleasure and an honor to be on your show, and I do enjoy talking to you as well. So we're all in this together, right? And and kudos to what you're doing, media wise and reaching out to the industry. I know you're doing a lot, and I'm amazed at your energy level. But
it's a lot of coffee, Barry.
I appreciate it, and I know a lot of people do. So
thank you.
I'll keep up the great work.
Yeah, well, we're going to continue. We're going to. We got, what did I say, 57 more shows to go till this Christmas. Plus, that's our SVK show. We're doing podcasts every week, 2 or 3 a week. And we're trying to get as much information as we can out there to provide people, because not everyone's going to watch it, but just a little bit here, a little bit there. Hopefully it helps. And that's all we want to do is just make sure our industry still comes back. And it will. We'll come back, and we're going to reinvent things. And we're very, very happy to be a part of it. So thanks again, Barry. To everyone else, guess what? We're back tomorrow, 11 o'clock a.m. with Saputo. Chef McGooey, Steve McGooey is on the show on tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern time. We'll be showing burger ideas with wicked different kinds of cheeses from Saputo. Like, they sent me some samples. Oh my God, it's crazy. So Chef Steve's going to show us some wicked ideas there. And it's all about takeout and elevating the takeout and delivery menus. That's our theme this week. And then tomorrow night, Beyond Meat, live from California, is going to be showing, you'll be able to see behind the scenes of their kitchen at Beyond Meat. I don't know if you know this, Barry, but I interviewed Ethan Brown couple of weeks ago, the founder of Beyond Meat, and pretty much the guy that disrupted the industry. He was amazing to talk with, and we had him on a show a few weeks ago. And anyways, they're going to be cooking up ideas using Beyond Meat, and I think there's ways to save money by using Beyond Meat. And as the diets change and people's flavor profiles change, I think it's an opportunity, and they're going to show us ideas there. So that's tomorrow night, and then we're back again for another, I think, 6 shows next week, and we're going to continue this until Christmas, and then back the following year into 2021. But Barry, always a pleasure. And just thank you so much for all the insights you bring us. And stay well, stay safe down there. We're watching you guys down there a lot and making sure everything's okay. But thanks again for everything you do as well.
Thank you. Be well.
Take care, everybody. Go eat out. Everyone go dine out, eat out. Go get takeout. Go do it tonight. Take care.